am Sarah. I am a project-based educator of about 13 years. And one of the things that really distinguishes or separates project-based learning from any other teaching style or learning method is authenticity. So the whole idea is that you're bringing in real-world scenarios. Students are interacting with community members, and that is really what makes project-based learning what it is. There's a variety of other things that make it unique, but I'm going to talk about authentic learning in this particular post. I have a blog post on authentic presentations where rather than students present their information to their class and their teacher, they present their information to a relevant audience in the public or in the community that could benefit from that information or what they've learned in some way. I'm not going to get into that in this post, in this video, so you can just go to my blog post on that to get a little bit more information about what an authentic presentation is exactly, the benefits, and a variety of ideas. That is www.experientiallearningdepot.com, and I will link it below in the description of this video. But what I want to talk about in this video is how to really plan and brainstorm authentic presentation ideas. And I have this free graphic organizer that my students use. My students are self-directed project-based learners, so they design their own projects, and so they have to come up with their own authentic presentation method. But if you are a teacher that is designing a project-based learning experience, this is useful for you as well. So you can click on the link to get to this graphic organizer. The link is in the description. It's a free download, so go ahead and grab that. And then I'm going to walk through how to do it. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I have an example written here. This is not included in the actual download. But let's say that I give my students, or I want to create a project-based learning experience on symbiotic relationships. I'm a science teacher, so I have actually assigned this to my students. What they would need to do before determining an authentic audience or authentic presentation plan is to figure out who their audience is, who could benefit from whatever they have to say about the symbiotic relationship that they explored. So ecology students, anyone who's interested in nature, maybe science teachers. There's a variety, but students would first need to determine their audience. And in this case, I'm just going to go with ecology students as an example. All right, so they have their topic, symbiotic relationships. The way that I do it is then every student chooses a symbiotic relationship that they're interested in exploring deeper, so a specific relationship. And then they come up with a final product option. So how are they going to demonstrate learning? And let's say one of your students decides that they want to do an experiment on their symbiotic relationship. And then from that experiment, they're going to produce a lab report or a publication on the experience and on the results. So then they could come on down here and figure out how could they share that lab report with an audience. How can they find that audience? How can they reach that audience? How can they get their final product to that audience? So then down here, this little brainstorming graphic, I'm trying to get this out of the way a little bit, is where they will just jot down a whole bunch of ideas. And then once they have a variety of authentic presentation options listed here, then whichever one speaks to them, they can decide to use, and they put that in their project plan, in their project design. So there are a variety of ways to share information or to share a final product with an authentic audience. Let me just go through some examples. So this is a printable. So you're not going to have to do this. There will just be an open space. But let's say your student decides that they can share their final product with a student-led scientific publication online. There are a variety of them. So let's say your student decides to submit a lab report to online science publication, specifically for students. That's one way to share their information, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. They don't have to plan this huge, exhibition night or something. It doesn't always have to be that complicated. I would say exhibition nights are really awesome if you have the time and the energy to put one together, but they are a little more work. Something like this, it just requires that the student hop online and share it. And what's wonderful about this is that because it's going to be seen by the public and it's going to be shared with an audience that cares about the information, the students just naturally put more effort into it and they take more pride in their work, and the result is quality work. Okay, so let's say she wants to maybe share her final results at a science fair. Schools have science fairs, the community has science fairs that the student can showcase their results from their experiment. Otherwise, there's online virtual everything these days, one of which is science fairs. So a student can hop online and Google search virtual science fairs and submit their work in that way. So one option for an authentic presentation is share final experiment process and results at a community science fair. Community science fair. And so they would just fill this out, and when one of those options for an authentic presentation strikes their interest, that's the one that they can do. That's the one they can choose. And if you are a teacher that is trying to design a project for your students, let's say for your class, use this also. It'll help you really narrow in on a good audience for the experience, and really, I was going to say a way for you to get authentic presentations to your authentic audience, but it is a little bit more than that. You want to take into consideration a variety of other things, such as time, funding. An exhibition night, is that realistic, or is it more realistic for your students to share something online? I mean, we do have to think about that these days, and I would encourage you not to skip this piece of it, the authentic presentation, because you think it's going to be too overwhelming or daunting. It doesn't have to be. I would rather my students, post something in their social media with a science hashtag than not do any authentic presentation at all. So use this free graphic organizer to not only help you figure out options for authentic presentations, or your students do that, but to also figure out what is realistic in your situation. I hope this was helpful. Reach out anytime with questions.